we're going to get started. As always, if you get triggered during this live, please know that triggers are opportunities for healing, especially because we are talking about a wound. We are most likely going to trigger you because if that wound is there in your body, when we say something that pokes it, it's going to cause it to rise to the surface. So you're going to feel a little bit of like, ooh, or an emotion may arise, or fear may show up, or judgment, denial, defense systems, the desire to want to run and hide. So just meet all of those different feelings and sensations and emotions that show up because they are clues into your rejection wound. Now, anything to add real quick before we dive deep into the rejection wound? Nope. So I'll begin by saying that in my rejection wound, I came into this earth rejecting my mother's birth canal. I chose to enter this earthly realm via a C-section. And in me rejecting her and not coming through her birth canal, that actually was rejecting me, but it was also her rejecting me. So anytime that there is, specifically when we go back to the mother wound, which is the wound of all life, and we look at the childhood wounds, and as I often say, the rejection wound is the deepest and most painful, right, love?
Absolutely.
It is a deep, deep, deep wound. And that is why going back and looking at, how did I reject my mother? Well, I wasn't a natural birth. And in that made her feel rejected. So in order for me to heal my rejection wound, I also had to look at the flip side of how did I trigger her rejection wound? How did I reject her? And I know you have a somewhat of a similar story.
It's just rejecting my mother's milk.
Well, because she tried to reject you while in her womb.
Yeah.
So that was that karmic loop of, okay, she's rejecting me. She doesn't want to give birth to me. Then I'm going to reject her milk to make her feel rejected. So this rejection wound, when we reject ourselves, we are going to create experiences in which others reject us to trigger the pain of all the ways in which we reject ourselves anyway. So a few questions that some people have shared with us that we will definitely address in today's portal of rejection. The first one is, I would love to learn how to stop resisting emotions and experiences. And that is a beautiful question. Just the other day in Womb Kriyas, a sister met that feeling of these emotions showing up and wanting to resist them, reject them, push them down, run from them. And then she realized, no, I can't do that. That's why I'm here, to allow these emotions to show up. So why do we resist emotions?
So I've got a different spin on it. We don't resist emotions. We like emotions if they're good emotions. If they're fun emotions, if they're emotions of love and laughter and joy and happiness, we don't resist those. So we don't, saying that we resist emotions is a rather broad brush to paint. It's the negative emotions. It's the low vibration emotions. It's the emotions that make us look at ourselves. They may not be necessarily negative, but it forces us to take a hard look of ourselves. We don't want to see those. We are in an aversion to anything that's uncomfortable. We only want everything that is comfortable. So we reject any emotion that puts us out of our comfort zone.
Which brings me to the next question then. So if we are resisting those uncomfortable emotions, but we don't resist and reject the feel good, quote unquote, positive emotions, then how can we truly feel those feel good, positive emotions when they're buried underneath all of the uncomfortable emotions that we reject and resist and don't want to feel, don't want to look at, don't want to process or transmute?
Well, the reality of it, and it's just like love. We'd all love to be able to say, well, I don't want to deal with hate. I only want love, spiritual bypassing, love and light. They're opposite ends of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. There's no darkness without light. There's no light without darkness. You have to have an opposite effect. You have to embrace both. So when we are rejecting all emotions that is not fun or pleasurable or brings us joy or happiness, we're really rejecting. We can't choose one or the other. We can't go through life. It's just like you and me. We try to live our life at the highest vibrancy. That's why I'm out fixing the bikes, because the weather is warm and we can go enjoy ourselves. But we can't reject the bad, quote unquote bad, duality. As soon as we start talking about good and bad, that's a whole different conversation. But we can't reject the feelings of anger or frustration. So I'm changing the bike tire. Yes, I would like to be able to get to change it and be happy, joy. But when I'm putting stuff and it's flipping out on me and I'm lost the tool and it's gone flying, I can't just go, I'm just going to be happy changing the bike tire. I have to deal with the frustration as well. And as you and I always talk, self-mastery is not just about mastering the mind and the body. Self-mastery is mastering the emotion. So there is a difference between, in my eyes at least, there's a difference between not wanting to deal with them, resisting them, and controlling them. And like we always say,
there's a third level of not just controlling them, but actually transmuting them so they're no longer there. Because if we just control and tame them, we're not actually transmuting them. We're trying to control them and keep them in a box so we only feel a little bit, because people are control freaks.
What I was going to say was this. You and I have had many conversations about this, about when Lucy and Buckwheat show up.
Our names for our trauma selves.
So we know that what's going on right now between the planets lining up for the solar eclipse, between the solar storms that are coming in, we are aware that there is a lot of emotions that's going to be stirred up in people. Low vibration emotions along with high vibration emotions. So whatever emotion becomes your default emotion, you're going to be feeling that a lot. So whether that's, if you're always in the poor me, gloom and doom, nothing good's happened to me, guess what happens? When these energies are now entering the planet, that feeling, if that's your major default emotion, is going to be magnified. So how do we control it? We don't control it by saying, oh, we don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I just want it to be in the good. It doesn't work that way. We have to at least acknowledge it. Hello, nice to see you. Check into our body and go, ooh, do I like this feeling of poor me, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, I'm not attractive, I'm not tall enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not, whatever the enough bullshit is, or not loved enough, not heard, not seen. We have to see it. Hello, nice, good to see you. And now I take it into practice. I feel where I feel it in my body. And I spend just however much time, because like you and I have always discussed, any trauma that occurs only lasts 90 seconds. It's what it lasts, 90 seconds. Science proves this. How long we stay in that trauma is entirely up to us. So I think when people are asking about resisting, they got to be clear. There is no resistance. Like they say in Star Trek, resistance is futile. You cannot resist these low emotions, these low frequencies. You can recognize them.
Well, there's the flight response, which is avoidance, which is resistance. And resistance is desire camouflaged by fear. So if you're resisting emotions, you're actually desiring to feel them, but that desire is camouflaged with a lot of fear. And it goes back to somatophobia, because people were never taught how to really, quote unquote, feel emotions, express emotions, manage emotions, control emotions, let alone transmute emotions. Because where I was going with the whole controlling of emotions, people can take that because we're a society that is control freaks, because we don't have control over our mind and body. We want to control everything external, but that control freak tendency can also be flipped internal, where we are actually controlling the resistance of our emotions because there's resistance there. So if I control them and tame them, there's not actually a transmutation of them. And that's a fine line to dance on, just as with any anything along this self-mastery journey, there's a lot of fine lines. The whole resistance of experiences, well, why would you resist an experience? But for example, if we look at, let's say a massive opportunity shows up, because we see this with a lot of the brothers and sisters we guide in ceremonies, where an opportunity will show up and they resist that experience or that opportunity. And it all comes back to fear. Because if they were to show up and say yes to that experience or opportunity, it's going to take back power from their ego, and the ego doesn't want to lose power and control over them. So in holding on to your trauma self, those emotions, the resistance of an experience that will actually contribute to the healing of those emotions and experiences, or emotions and traumas, it's actually rejecting our higher self. And if we look at all of the fight, flight, freeze responses, because anytime you are triggered, that wound is poked, and whatever nervous system state that occurred, that your body felt when you first felt that wound, so rejection. For example, recall the very first memory that you have in which you felt rejected by a parent. For example, let's go down the mother wound portal. And when you recall that very first memory of rejection, what does it make you feel? Does it make you feel like you want to become defensive? Where you want to fight, you get angry, there's a lot of frustration and rage that shows up? Or do you want to run from those feelings and emotions? You want to avoid them, you want to escape, you don't want to look at them, you go into denial? Or is it a freeze state, a total feeling of shock, confusion, anxiety, depression, helplessness, hopelessness, powerlessness? And being able to identify that nervous system state that's attached to the wound allows you to see, oh, okay, so when one of these responses show up, when I'm resisting an experience, resisting an emotion, this is going to be a clue for me. Oh, I'm in the rejection wound. Oh, I want to run from it. Or, oh, I want to defend it. And all three of those nervous system states. So when we stay in a fight response, let's say we get triggered and we just fight, and never come out of the fight response, that is actually a form of self-rejection, because we're rejecting our higher self, fighting for our lower state of consciousness, trauma self.
Well, and again, I'll bring back our life and put this into perspective. Like you and I always discuss, when Lucy shows up, you actually fight for Lucy to be expressed and to be heard and to be seen and to stay for a while.
Right?
When we're like, hey, okay, recognize Lucy, she's here. How does she feel? I don't know, not that good. Okay. Where in your body do you feel it? And like you say, when was the first time I experienced this version of Lucy? Was it by a rejection from a family member, a sibling, a friend? Where did I feel this? And is my partner rejecting me, or is this a trigger that my partner just triggered in me that caused this rejection to show up?
Well, and anytime there is especially in relationships, because we're talking about our relationship, I know that every time you trigger Lucy, which is my trauma self, you're just triggering a deep ancestral wound that I came here to heal, that I chose you to be my partner to trigger within me so I could heal it, not just for me, but my ancestors, and vice versa. In relationships, you created me, so your partner created you, and you trigger within your partner all of those ancestral wounds that you signed up to heal, not just for you, but your ancestors. Because no different than your rejection wounds, when I trigger that within you and buckwheat comes out, you're not just healing it for you. I'm not the cause of your pain, just as you're not the cause of my pain. But we signed up to trigger it for one another because that's what we came here to heal. And that's the hardest part for couples, especially, to be able to navigate these deepest wounds that get triggered in relationships.
And again, I'll go back to use this as an example. You're in the middle of your sacred secretion. And when the wound shows up, and we expect that triggers are going to show up just before or during the sacred secretion, so you know that this is something major that you have the opportunity to heal during your sacred secretion, if we don't have a strong Shiva, a strong masculine, then how do we navigate when we are triggered? If both of you, because again, we are drawn together by our trauma wounds. This is why we create partners perfectly. So if I am not in a space to have that strong Shiva, to hold that, oh, Lucy's here, Buckwheat wants to come out and say hello, and I got to put Buckwheat back in the box and go, listen, this is not your dance. Let Lucy dance. You stay right where you are. So it's not me forcing Buckwheat back. It's just me having a strong enough masculine container to go, you're not coming out to play with her today. You're going to hold that space for her and gently, lovingly guide her to show her that Lucy's online. And if she doesn't want to see that Lucy's online, then just step back and let her be. Don't engage. Because the minute you engage, you know, and again, we say it all the time, it's going to elicit a response from either a fight stage, a flight stage, or a free stage.
Absolutely.
And any one of those stages show up, guess what? Buckwheat's going to come out and play.
This is the trauma bond. Because just as I had shared with you the other day, when we have, so I came in with a rejection wound from my mother, you came in with a rejection wound with your mother, then we create one another through that rejection wound. Frequency attracts frequency. So what happens, just as we're sharing in our life, can you mirror it in your life and look and go, wow, so when my partner triggers me, my trauma self, whatever you've named your trauma self, shows up to play, which is then going to call forth your partner's trauma self, because that's the matching frequency. That's the attraction. That's the bond. And that is where both of you individually have to go in and look and go, okay, so what is the root of this wound that my partner is triggering in me and that I'm triggering in my partner? Because that's how you get to the root of it and how you truly alchemize that trauma bond into a soul bond.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next question, I'd like to know how to heal it, disarm it, in order to feel comfortable making friends. And this is a very interesting one, because just the whole concept of ships, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a business partnership, a friendship, a family ship, whatever kind of ship it is, you are going to create people in your reality who trigger exactly what your soul came here to heal. So if you struggle making friends, that just mirrors that you struggle being friends with your higher self, with your inner child. So we're not able to be in relationship with ourselves, which is then mirrored in an inability to be in any kind of ship with other people. And I know you tapped into the friendship wounds the other day, where you were looking at all these people and you're like, it's not really the brother wound or the sister wound or this, it's like the friendship wound.
And so one of the things for me, to answer that question, I never struggled with things like that. And I'll tell you why I never struggled with things like that. And you said it. I've always been comfortable with me. I like me. I like spending time with me. For 7 years after my first divorce, I lived single by choice. Nobody was allowed to stay in my house for more than 24 hours. By choice, I loved the freedom of being by myself. Sitting in my house by myself, cooking by myself, cleaning by myself. I didn't struggle for contact. So, but when I go out, I know that I love people. I love learning about people. And that's why I've always told you, growing up in the Caribbean, we didn't know anything about strangers. To us, a stranger is a friend that you haven't made yet. That's all it is. So when you meet a stranger, and this whole concept of developing friends and fearing the rejection of someone that you would like to be friends with, or that you're talking to and the person rejects your friendship, it really comes back to, what is it in me that I'm rejecting?
Absolutely.
Because for me, when, like, I traveled to 20 years in corporate America, traveling all over North America and all over the Caribbean, And I made friends, the person who sat next to me on the plane, the person who sat next to me at the bar while I was having lunch, the person that rented the car for me, or wherever I go, I made friends. I still have friends. I haven't worked in the industry in over 10 years, and people still reach out to me who I just did business with.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was simply this, and this is how I owned me, and maybe this will answer that question for that person. Own who you are. Know who you are. What do you have to offer? If I want to be friends with you, then I can't just look at what you offer me for friendship. I have to be, what do I offer you for friendship? And if I own who I am, my knowledge, my personality, my sense of humor, my drive and ambition, whatever that is, if I approach you from a place of friendship and you don't want it, I still have that. I own that. I have to look at you now in my mind and say, you're not deserving of my friendship because you can't recognize what I bring to the table.
And the person still contributes a trigger to look
Absolutely.
at, okay, so where am I rejecting a part of me or can't receive this friend or family member, whoever it is.
And even again, going back into my case, I have friends who I've known since the time I was 17. Friends that I've moved heaven and earth to help them stand on their feet. And today they want nothing to do with me, although we've never exchanged words. What life has happened, they've gone on and had families and careers, and I've gone on and traveled the world and had careers and everything else, and been married a couple of times, never had the family portion. But even in trying to rekindle that friendship, it's the rejection of, I don't really want to be friends with you anymore. And I look at it from a perspective of, okay, so we were friends once. We have grown separately. So we are not at the same frequency anymore. So I don't take it personally that you don't want to be friends or be close with me or exchange, hey, what's going on in your life? Here is mine. I take it as the simple fact that we are not at the same place, and I can't hold on to those old friendship of where I used to be.
Absolutely.
And expect them to be here. It's the same thing with family. You mentioned family members. I look at the fact that all my nephews and nieces have rejected me. And what's interesting is I have played a very, very crucial role in most of their lives, whether they recognize it or not. Some of them more so than others, but every single one of them, I played a crucial role in them as they were growing up. Now that they're in their 30s and 40s, and some of them are married and have children and everything else, and I used to be an inspiration for them. Now they don't even want to communicate. So I have had to.
Oh, you've triggered them a lot.
That's what I have to. I have come to the realization that this is who I am. I am going to trigger you to be the best version of you. And if you just want to stay comfortable and not want to be pushed out of your comfort zone and want nothing to do with me, look, you're a good example. You sent out, because I know I have triggered my nephews, 2 of them that I was close to. So you took it upon yourself as a last minute effort and says, let me reach out to them. And since what we're offering the world is working, we're seeing with the people who are committed to their higher self, what we have birthed is working. And it's working. We took it for granted that it was working for us, but we figured, okay, well, maybe we're prejudiced. Let's hand it out to the world. So we're seeing it working. So you took it upon yourself to say, let me at least reach out. I have a relationship with these nephews of yours. They're around my age. Let me reach out. And
they still look at all my Instagram stories, and I'm like, they're still hanging on. There's something there. So let me just reach out. I know they consume cannabis. Let me introduce my book.
They will not even respond. So it's just like, okay.
Well, and that's the fine line with the rejection wound. And I just want to backtrack to something that you said to answer this question. I know many of you are probably sitting there going, yeah, but how the fuck do I just own me? Because you told me that for years. And I got so frustrated with you because I'm like, but babe, how? How when there's a limitation, a misalignment, there's something here that I just can't go from whatever state of consciousness I was in to, okay, I'm I'm confident I can own me, because then it's faking it till you make it. And that's the society we live in. And that's what I rejected all these years, as I found my path to truly and authentically owning me. Because for me, it wasn't as just, like the whole affirmations, look in the mirror and I'm happy, I'm confident, I'm beautiful. I knew from 2005 when those came out, I'm like, that shit doesn't work, because there's a disconnect, there's a misalignment. How can I stand there and own who I am when my frequency, the underlying frequency, is different? How can I tell myself I love myself when I have all this shame and self-judgment underlying it?
Then you don't really love yourself.
Well, this is where I'm going with the affirmations. They don't work. We can't fake it till you make it. So when he says, just own who you are, that's not going to just magically fix whatever rejection wound you are feeling. You actually have to put in the work and go into your body and meet where that stored energy, that frequency of rejection, that wound is stored in your fascia. Because unless that gets uprooted and transmuted, you can put a smile on your face, you can stand in the mirror and I own me, I know what I contribute, I'm amazing, I'm beautiful, I'm abundant, I'm this, I'm that. But you're saying that, and in your subconscious and unconscious mind, where the stories of rejection are stored, they're going to come out and resist that and go, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but look at all this self-judgment. Yeah, but. So you're going to be in this constant state of internal turmoil or conflict, and you're never going to feel like you get anywhere, which is why I did so many different modalities to only realize this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I feel like a fake doing this. There's something deeper here that I have to get to truly own me. So in terms of rejection and making friends and truly owning you, you really got to dive deep into your body and look at all the ways in which you reject you, which is the only reason that you would create friends rejecting you, because there is that frequency of rejection still stored in your body that is physically manifesting that experience to you. And while that experience may be painful, and trust me, I have been rejected by so many sisters on this healing path. It isn't even funny.
Well, look at the doctors that are rejecting you for showing them a different way to work with their clients. All they care about is just
making money. Does it make me money?
Do you have an
I
option
don't want
for me to go do a conference so I can make more money and see more clients? No, then I'm not interested in healing. I'm not interested in real healing.
How much I share that, no. I did that. I did the seminars, the supplements, the programs, the try on this, try on that, become a cookie cutter practice, do this system. No, it did not work. I have a few chiropractors who I've shared this with, and their business coach is telling them, you need patients, just get on the phone and make cold calls to get patients in your door. That doesn't work because it's coming from desperation. So this goes back to the whole fake it till you make it. If I'm in a state of rejecting myself, rejecting abundance, rejecting blah, 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 and then I go out and try to make cold calls to get patients to come into my office at an energetic level, they're going to feel that energy of rejection. So what are they going to do? They're going to reject me. So then I'm going to waste my time making those cold calls to fill up my practice so I can receive the abundance that my rejection wound is actually rejecting. So I'm never going to create abundance as long as I have a rejection wound in my body. That's the silly part about it. And that's how we actually reject ourselves even more, by thinking these external things are going to fix us. Just like the affirmations that go against what is stored in our mind and body. Until we heal our mind and body, beginning with the descent into the body, we're never going to see external changes in our reality. No matter what blockage, experience, rejection, whatever shows up in your reality, it's showing up because the code that created it or wrote it into your reality is stored in the body. Next question. Anything else to contribute, love?
No.
All right, so here's the question. More of an observation than a question. As I'm going through this healing process, I find myself ping-ponging between feelings of anger towards my mother and the anger towards my father. When my parents were divorcing, I was forced to pick a side, and I remember feeling utterly confused and helpless. Freeze state. In this rejection portal, I feel like I'm unwinding more of the mother wound, and why would this be the case? As both sides, toxic masculinity and the angry feminine, toxic femininity, and its opposites are the culprits. And I think we already addressed that the deepest rejection wound is the mother wound. Yeah, we can look at the rejection of the father and from the father, but we spent 9 months in our mother's womb. So to take it another level, that this rejection wound is not just yours, but you inherited it from your lineage. Just feel into all of the times your mother rejected herself while you were in her womb for 9 months, and all the ways in which you internalized that she's rejecting you and her rejecting herself. Because when you were in your mother's womb, you felt every one of her thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You felt every one of her wounds. You felt every time her trauma self came online, and you misidentified that she's upset, she's angry, she's rejecting me, she's this, she's that. You felt like it was your fault. So that then compounded the wounds that you inherited from your lineage, creating an enmeshment-like net over top of your wounds that you inherited, compounding it. And then through those developmental stages of life up until 7, every experience you have, that even though your mother may have not been rejecting you, but she was rejecting herself, you misidentified that it was your fault, she was rejecting you, when really she was rejecting herself. And then the whole divorce thing, I can speak on that real quick. When my parents got divorced, I didn't have to choose, but my mother was so jealous of my relationship with my father that she tried to do everything in her power to turn us against my father. And I was the only one who did not turn against my father. I was unbiased, but I was able to see both sides clearly. And it looked like in her eyes that I was rejecting her and taking my father's side, when all I was doing was I was able to see why my father made the choices he made and how she contributed to it. And she didn't like that I wasn't taking her side and rejecting my father, so she felt rejected by it.
I remember having friends, like I told you, 2 chiropractic friends that I met them both in business.
Mm-hmm.
And when they decided to go their separate ways, they forced me, just like this person asked, to make a choice. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I'm friends with both of you. No, you have to make a choice.
Why?
Why do I have to make a choice? Why can't I just be friends with both of you? No, you have. So I remember the guy actually cut me off from his, and we've been, all my friends became his friends, because he didn't have a whole lot of friends. So he had all of my friends choose his side, and was pissed at me because I wouldn't choose his side. And no matter how much I said to him, bro, listen, both of you were friends when you were together. You were my friends as a couple. Just because you're going your separate ways, that doesn't mean that I don't get to still have you both as friends. I know that we can't all hang out together. Totally understand that. But when I'm hanging out with you, I hang out with you. When I'm hanging out with her, I hang out with her. And whoever she's with or whoever's going on, and whoever you're with and whatever's going on. So when parents go through this, and I know that most children go through this, that's a whole different conversation. Nobody should ever have to make a choice. And it really shows the trauma in both the parents when they're forcing a child to make that choice. To say, well, you're going to have to choose me. And the child is just confused, going, oh, wait a minute. You're both my parents. So what does that mean to choose your side? Does that mean I just ignore my father or my mother and just always want to live with you and be with you and do everything and just this half of my life just forget and go, no, I'm dedicated to you. Mm-hmm. That's not fair for any parent. And I know it's being done every single day because our divorce rates are so incredibly high.
Well, and that's exactly what I saw with my mother. It was, I'm rejecting my husband, so my children, you guys should reject him too, because I want you to be on my side, to be happy with me, just like the pattern she inherited from my grandmother, who is, I'm going to destroy everyone around me, but I want all the women on my side, and we're going to live happily together. I mean, she wanted my mother, me, my sister, my brother to all live together. That would have made her so happy, like the Brady Bunch, but without the men, because they rejected the men of my maternal lineage. They were the ultimate emasculators. And in rejecting their masculine counterpart, they ended up rejecting their inner masculine. And look, now they're living angry, miserable, can't create another masculine partner. So in them rejecting their external partner, which they thought they were doing without seeing, they were rejecting their inner masculine. Now, because of their rejection of their inner masculine, they can't create another external masculine.
So before we move on from that topic, the rejection and the divorce piece, that piece is going to play more and more of an important role. And tomorrow in our book reading, we will discuss that even in more details, folks. So if you haven't booked your time to come to the book reading, I will tell you this is
8 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
This is probably going to, which is 7 o'clock our time.
Yeah, because we're now
We're now
central.
allowed,
Yeah.
So this is going to probably be one of the most powerful book readings, and there is a potential that it could be our last. And we'll explain that tomorrow as to why we're saying that, because we are aware of some things that are coming. We don't know how they're going to unfold, but we're just putting that out there.
And no fear. We're open to all possibilities.
So like I said,
You're just like triggering people.
and again, no trick.
You got to feel the fear, though. And tomorrow we're going to explain why you got to feel the fear. And it's part of the rejection portal.
So if we go down that pathway, and we'll go into more details tomorrow, but let's just touch up on it now. These solar flares that are happening, the 6 planets that are lining up for the lunar eclipse, all the changes that are going on in the world right now, science is saying it. This is not hairy theory. This is not spiritual talk. Science is even saying it, that there's so much energy coming into the planet right now that a lot of triggers are going to happen. A lot of relationships, all ships, not just romantic, not just work relationship. All relationships are really going to be tested in this solar storm that we're in over the next coming 2 years, but especially over the next 90 days. So if we don't have a strong base and a strong foundation, like we go back to having our conversation with Lucy and Buckwheat, that if we don't have a strong way and a strong masculine to navigate these rough waters, and people are experiencing it. We're hearing from people who are experiencing, they're like, wow, the fucking explosions, like, holy shit, over the littlest thing.
Let's make a differentiation here. The people who are feeling it are the ones who are doing the work and are embodied. Those who are not embodied are living in cognitive dissonance, which we discussed in our last live. And it's like, no, life's great. Life's beautiful. I'm not feeling anything. Because they're not feeling the intensity. When you're in your body and you're doing the work to ascend to a higher frequency, you are going to feel every incoming solar flare, storm. You're going to feel those energies incoming, and you're going to feel the lower frequencies rising. You're going to feel your trauma self rising. You're going to feel your pain body rising. And it has to.
You're also going to feel fear.
A lot of fear.
Rejection brings up a lot of fear. That's why you see that people struggle. Look at that wonderful book review that somebody gave you, right? We know that what we do works. It just doesn't work for us, it works for other people. So we deal with the rejection. We see when people who actually work with us reject sharing our work to their family members, to their friends, to their co-workers. And like you and I always say, when we go to a nice restaurant and the food was amazing, the ambience was great, the service was off the chain, When we go to a good restaurant, the prices was fantastic. We can't wait to share. Everybody we talk, by the way, if you go to this restaurant, the food, or we read a good book, or we see a good movie, or we hear a good song, we are quick to go out and share it with everybody that we know. But for some reason, when it comes to healing, let me tell you about that one. Let me tell you all the reasons that I don't want to share this healing, although it's working for me. Although I'm seeing the experience myself. I don't want to really share it out there. It's too scary. People might reject me if I share it with them.
Well, and that I was sharing with you this morning in our practice that every little aspect of our work, when you step into a container with us and either show up for the Womb Kriyas or Hara Kriyas or do a sacred secretion container with me, every little thing, every little task, every little homework, every trigger we deliver is going to bring up a different wound. And the mere invitation to invite a partner or your children who are grown,
or your friends, or your yoga teacher, or your chiropractor, or your...
The fear of rejection shows up. Okay, so this practice is working for me. I'm seeing amazing results in being able to heal myself of my fight, flight, freeze responses. I'm popping through pain portals.
Why would I not
want to share that with especially my loved ones? Yeah. Are they not struggling with fear, anxiety, depression, stress, pain, symptoms? Do I not desire them to be by my side on this path to attaining higher consciousness?
So that brings up the question. So is your fear of, we claim that we love these people.
We claim.
Okay. But is my fear of rejection, of introducing them to something, unless people are bullshitting us and it's not really working for them, why would you be ashamed to introduce or have fear to introduce this level of self-healing? Because remember, it's not about putting us on a pedestal and saying
we're so great.
We're not.
And we don't need the money. We're not inviting you to invite your family members because we want to feel our ceremonies. It's free. Exactly.
But is your fear of rejection of them saying, nah, I don't like that. That's not for me. So instead of looking at it and going, I can give them an opportunity to not do what I did, to finally reach to a place in my life, however old I am, to reach to the space to realize what self-healing really is. Why would I not want to give that to, again, my nephews? They're in their 30s and 40s. Why would I want them to subject themselves to what I had to go through until I discovered my higher self? Which is, although they've rejected me, I could have stopped you at any point in time and go, babe, they've already rejected. Don't fucking bother with them. And you're like, no, I'm going to anyway. If they reject me again, I don't care. At least I know that I've tried to help them wake up.
And we're not here to help anyone wake up. Let's make that a clear distinction. But there's a difference between trying to reach out and help or save someone and reaching out and being an invitation to a different possibility.
I don't want to save anybody. I just want to show people, listen, this is working for me and it's working for other people. You're a young person still. You have a life ahead of you. You may or may not be in a relationship. If you are in a relationship, you're going to have challenges. If you're not in a relationship yet, you are going to have challenges because you're still discovering who you are. So why not do the healing now? And like we told our brother Mir recently, the more you heal the better options you have for potential partners are showing up.
Because frequency attracts frequency.
So for my single nephews, I would love for them to have that, for them to heal themselves, to attract a better partner. For my nephews who are married, I would love for them to not have to go through what I have to go through with 2 failed marriages under my belt, to learn the lessons without having to go through it themselves, because they have children. And their children are going to be the consequences, just like that person asked, of having to make that decision of which parent to choose, when all you had to do, so I'll put it back, so that whoever asked that question, Do you think your parents would have made you make that choice had they been healing themselves?
No, not at all. They wouldn't have gotten the divorce.
They wouldn't have gotten there. So why would you not want to give that to your children or your sister or your brother or your uncle or your aunt or whoever that you hold dear to you? Why would you not want to give them that option?
Think about it. Divorce is the ultimate rejection wound. If you get divorced, that is the ultimate rejection. You're divorcing your partner, you're rejecting them, they're rejecting you. Instead of going, you know what, let's heal this. Whatever this is that is causing a blow up in the relationship. And that's where couples, there were no rites of passages. Yeah. There's no education. So it's easier to hit the eject button. Eject is a part of reject. So that shines light on a deep rejection wound. So if your parents did get divorced, there's a portal there for you to go down, because that wound is going to show up in your relationship, and you may have already been divorced. You still got to go reconcile and heal that and look at where your internal feminine and masculine are divorced.
Well, look at how many people, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, look how many people we work with who either it's a brother and he refuses to invite his wife or his friends because he's so afraid of the rejection. And like we keep telling them, if you're both not on the healing path together, somebody's going to get left behind. If it's a woman, and we see this often, so afraid of asking their husbands to say, hey, come to a book reading. It's free. It's uninvasive. Mm-hmm. You get to relax. You get to enjoy a different experience. It's a full-blown psychedelic experience. But so afraid of the rejection that if I offer it to them and they say no, so what if they say no? Okay, so I'll come back and do it by myself.
But we have seen this many times, love, where their partner does show up and the partner gets triggered and runs, which causes them to run from the healing. So they're afraid.
Rejecting the healing.
They're afraid if the partner shows up and rejects the healing, it's just a matter of time before they reject the healing. So they're going to follow down that pathway because they don't feel strong enough to maintain the healing path without a partner on the same healing path.
But what's funny regarding that is this. So whether you invite your loved one or not, it's just the way things are. The more you heal, the more you change your frequency. The more you change your frequency, the less you are going to be at the level of your partner or loved one, because you keep increasing your frequency and they stay right where they are.
Which ties into fear of losing the partner.
Which
so they're
going
not going
to do so anyway. As long as you keep. The only way not to lose the partner is to reject the healing path that you're on, or to your partner, your loved one, whoever it is to reject the healing path and go back to sleep to where they are and go back into that wound bond again and just keep going through life, poking each other and just getting by with superficial healing as opposed to doing real work.
But as we always say, when one partner is on the healing journey and the other isn't, it's only a matter of time before the one who is healing gives up, because they don't want to physically lose. They know they're going to have to lose their partner, because you can't keep rising in frequency with a partner who's still in a low frequency. It's just going to be a clash. Like, it's not, you're not going to feel alignment. The attraction is going to feel different.
You're going to fight for everything.
Everything is going to feel different.
But it's not just the partner, it's any family member.
It is.
It's anybody who's close to you emotionally. You're going to lose them, no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Unless you go into your body and you heal the fear of loss, and then you realize, okay, you know what? I can't really lose them. They're at a different frequency than I am. It is what it is. At the end of the day, you haven't really lost them. You may not be able to connect physically anymore, but you haven't really lost them. Now, before you get started, I want to share one other thing real quick about the tunnel vision and how I reflected this to a sister the other day, because most people haven't been able to see this, that when you do healing, you pass healing back to your ancestors, correct? Beginning with it flowing back to your parents and then back to your grandparents, so on and so on. And then your healing gets passed forward to your children. Now, if you have grown children, and you're not inviting them to join this healing journey with you, then you are actually, out of fear of rejection from them, you're actually rejecting yourself. Because if you could get over the fear of being rejected by them and invite them, and let's say they do show up and they do start healing, guess what? Their healing now flows back to their ancestors,
Which is you
being the very first ancestor, which is actually going to catapult your healing to the next level.
You gotta laugh for that.
The fear
That
of
shit's funny.
rejection is actually creating rejection. So by holding on to the fear of, my children may reject me,
Oh, my nephew.
you are rejecting yourself already. My partner may reject me, but you're already rejecting yourself because that trauma bond could be alchemized, but you are rejecting the alchemization process of that trauma bond by being afraid to invite your partner due to fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a double-edged sword. Well, I'm afraid to be rejected. Meanwhile, while you're saying I'm afraid to be rejected from someone external, you're already rejecting yourself. That's why the fear is there. Like, it's no-brainer.
It's funny. It is. Because the thing that we fear most, this whole concept of rejection, we create it just by rejecting and being, and I can only say it's embarrassment. Why else, if you're doing a healing work and it's working for you, why would you not tell your friends, your family, everybody, because like this stuff is working?
Well, there's shame because it's called Womb Kriyas or Hara Kriyas. There's cannabis and it's intense, and Shelley and Kumar, they're really good at triggering people. So we can't bring our loved ones because we know they're going to get triggered and they may run because it's going to be too much.
Can't bring my friends, can't bring,
Meanwhile, forgetting that triggers are name of the game, they're healing opportunities. Remembering that if you're on this path, imbibing cannabis sacredly, and you're still holding on to shame, then how sacred is your relationship with cannabis?
Absolutely.
If there's still shame and embarrassment there.
Or bypassing it and claiming that, oh no, I've got a sacred relationship with her. I can smoke her at a concert with drunk people all around me and it's sacred.
It's sacred. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing, and this rejection portal is really a rejection of our sacredness. No one is free of the rejection wound. We all have a rejection wound. There's no shame in having a rejection wound. But the one thing that we have to do with the rejection wound is we have to look at all the ways we reject ourselves, because we're never going to get rid of the fear of being rejected if we never look, see, hear, or feel all the ways in which we reject our sacredness. And it begins with, let's just look at on a day-to-day basis. How often when you drink something are you present? That you stop and you do the restructuring and the recalibration ritual. Are you doing that every time you put something in your mouth? Or are you going through life on automatic pilot mode and only in ceremony do you do that ritual? That's a way of rejecting ourselves. Another way is self-judgment, defending our trauma self. Denial, avoidance, escapism, addictions, coping mechanisms, anything to numb our body, anything to numb our feelings and our emotions, anything to keep and hang on to our trauma self is a rejection of our higher self. You know, Brother Mayor.
Thank you, Brother Mayor.
Thank you, Brother Mayor. But there is this fear of feeling ourself, this fear, and I hear it in my sisterhood all the time, that anything that is foreign, any feeling that is foreign, even if it's the feeling of your higher self, because it's foreign, because it's uncomfortable, because it's a new feeling, because it feels intense and overwhelming. Oh, no, oh my God, I'm so afraid to feel that.
Oh, it's overwhelming.
But that's your higher self. But no, I don't want to feel that. I like what I'm feeling over here in my comfort zone. But that's your trauma self.
But I'm okay with my trauma self because my trauma self is what I know.
And it's comfortable.
And it's very comfortable.
So giving our power to fear. Again, that fear of rejection. The moment you give your power to that fear of rejection, you're already rejecting yourself. The moment you give power to fear of feeling your higher self, feeling everything vibrating, feeling the intensity of your Shakti, you're already rejecting your higher self. Another trauma response that oftentimes we receive a lot is projection. And it's when we are holding someone accountable to see, feel, hear themselves, they immediately want to project their shit onto us. And that in itself is rejection, rejecting of the accountability, rejecting seeing themselves, rejecting hearing themselves, rejecting feeling themselves.
And like we always say, our work is not just about imbibing cannabis in a conscious way. Our work is not just the kriyas. The essence of our work is the accountability. That is the huge healing portion. It's amazing how people reject the accountability.
And the accountability is the masculine portion. So they are rejecting their inner masculine, which ties into the final question, which is there anything to do differently if the rejection is related to a mother wound, father wound, brother wound, or sister wound? The only thing I'll say about that is that each of those wounds mirrors which aspect within you you're rejecting. So a mother wound and a sister wound is going to mirror to you the ways in which you reject your inner feminine, your body, your Shakti or life force. And a brother wound or a father wound is all the ways in which you reject your inner masculine, your mind, your container. So
not the egoic mind,
no,
not the trauma mind.
The higher divine mind, the Shiva who comes into the body. For example, in a breath hold in one of our ceremonies, if you cannot hold your breath and you give into fear, you've just rejected your higher self that's on the other side of that breath hold. If you're able to conquer the fear, which the fear arises from your trauma self. Any final thoughts, feelings, emotions, love?
Except that tomorrow will be powerful. So we will encourage whoever is watching this, if you can make the time tomorrow, bring your friends, bring your loved ones, because we don't know what we don't know, but we will share with you tomorrow why we think tomorrow is so powerful. On top of that too, it's the blood moon tonight, so that energy is going to be...
It's a lunar eclipse, full moon.
So we're going to try and stay up tonight to watch it, because this has never happened before, where you're supposed to see the moon red when it's eclipsed. So that's going to be interesting.
Well, we shall see. So if you can carve out 2 hours of your time tomorrow, consider it a cannabis rite of passage.
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. All you need is a yoga mat, water, a little bit of cannabis, a Bluetooth speaker, some pillows and blankets.
And if you have friends and family, invite them. Make it into a group thing. Like, you really, if you think about what you're inviting your friends and family to, it's really a deep meditation. That's it. Like, that's about the most non-intrusive entry level into what we do. And if you can't invite your friends and your family or your partner to that, I don't know what you can.
Great question. So thank you all for joining us today.
Sorry about the Instagram thing.
Technology, it is what it is. We will see you tomorrow, though, from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out.